we've been covering here on That Park Place the changes to disability access for those individuals who actually want to visit these parks who may be coming from an enviable position, let's say. And previously, these parks like Universal, Disney, and even United have been very accommodating in trying to cater to people who may not be able to experience all their attractions or who might need accommodations made so that they can experience these things. Well, United Parks and Resorts, that would be the parent company of SeaWorld and Busch Gardens and so forth, well, they've taken an odd tact when it comes to a particular mobility device that people actually use to navigate these parks. And, unfortunately for them, the Justice Department is getting involved. Here from Orlando Theme Park Zone, United Parks and Resorts, Justice Department opens investigation into United Parks and Resorts for disability discrimination following recent, quote, roller walkers policy change. This by the staff there at Orlando Theme Park Zone, November 25th, 2025. The Justice Department Civil Rights Division and the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Middle District of Florida has announced today that they have launched an investigation into United Parks and Resorts Incorporated to determine whether it violates Title III of the American with Disabilities Act, or ADA, by discriminating against guests with disabilities. The department opened this investigation after receiving complaints from members of the public with disabilities who allege that 3 of its parks, SeaWorld Orlando, Aquatica Orlando, and Busch Gardens Tampa Bay, violate the ADA by banning guest use of certain walkers, known as rollator walkers. Complainants allege that they cannot access the parks without their rollators. And the only alternative the parks offer would require them to use mobility aids that are inappropriate for their individual disabilities and to incur additional charges, amongst other allegations. Quote, the ADA protects every American from disability-based discrimination in places of public accommodation, including the theme parks. Assistant Attorney General Harmony K. Dillon for the Justice Department's Civil Rights Division said, we are committed to upholding our federal civil rights laws so that no guest is denied access or charged more because of a disability. Now, what they mean by charging more is that a lot of these theme parks, they will have other accommodations that they will provide you, but for a fee, like for a wheelchair or a motorized scooter. And so that's kind of the allegation, is that not only are you denying access for these rollator walkers, I'll get up a picture to demonstrate. But
yeah, because I have no idea what this thing is.
It is a walker on wheels that some people actually use to navigate these theme parks or other public places. And so the idea is, okay, you are denying somebody this item. They obviously didn't bring anything else, and now you're going to charge them on the back end if they want to enjoy your theme parks. I don't like this at all. Maybe I can come up with a justification for which you might ban these things, and we'll get into that in just a moment while Jonas comments on all of this. But Jonas, this is a really big conversation in theme parks right now, because we are seeing, previously thought of as kind of ADA protected items, unfortunately being questioned, and new policies formulated by these theme parks, even as the disability rates within the United States increase. What say you, Jonas? What do you think about all this?
Well, this is fascinating, and I do think it's good that the administration is enforcing ADA compliance, and they need to do that equally across all corporations and all that for theme parks. The question I have is, are these a very unusual kind of walker? This, to me, I've seen the kind where it's almost a glide step, like there'll be a couple of tennis balls on the back wheels and something that is a little bit more sturdy and won't move on the front, that it's basically picking up that item as we go along. But these are all over the place. How can they ban something like this?
Well, I guess the idea is twofold, and I'm just speculating here because I unfortunately haven't heard United Parks actually respond to this, which I was hoping to get a hold of before we actually brought it to you guys here on the stream. But from what I can surmise, just thinking from an operations perspective, it might be twofold. In that, one, it might be wheeled, so that necessarily brings up the question on whether or not, if brakes aren't engaged, whether it wheels into somebody else. But if you let go of it on a downhill slope or something like that. But then two, this particular roller, and I believe many of them actually utilize this function, in which there's a seat included, and
I've seen grandchildren put on those seats.
Right. And so there has been rules and regulations in place for a while at all of these theme parks in which you are forbidden from actually bringing a seat with you in any form or fashion. And maybe this qualifies as that. But I just think, man, if this is where this is going to be the hill that United is going to die on, proverbially, let's say, I just think it's very strange to key in on this. And it's a slippery slope, Jonas, because when you talk about mobility devices, I mean, where do we draw the line?
Right. Well, that is the thing. Everybody has their preference as to I was expecting something a little bit more extreme here in order for it to be banned, but these are so commonly used. I know several people at the church I attend that use this specific device, walker device. And yes, on occasion, they'll have a small child on there, but I don't think the small child really creates any kind of safety issue there. There are brakes on it. As you can see, they use standard bicycle brakes, modified. You're absolutely correct. United Parks and Resorts does not need to put themselves in a position where they're creating a disability issue. Disney will allow the most extravagant carts, strollers that you have ever seen in your entire life. In fact, I would almost be surprised if they even have a rule against motorized strollers in there, because that could be considered a disability device. Forgive me, I'm not using the correct term there.
I will say, in the regulation of these devices, and again, I mean, the amount of disabled individuals in the United States is going up every single year, and people can argue about that all day long. The fact, though, is that, you know, we are going to have to contend, I believe, more of these mobility devices in the future. And when I think about that regulation and what that looks like, I could kind of understand, maybe, I've kind of advocated this privately, but if you're going to have a mobility scooter, for example, then it might be best for parks just to kind of either ensure that people know how to operate those vehicles, or maybe like a driving course or something to which you can go, okay, this person can competently operate this vehicle. Because some people, you know, they get to the parks, sometimes it's their first time.
It's their first time using it, because they're and there are some people that they need it because it's a day that's going to be a lot of walking. And
Right.
I'm just going to say this. There are some people who use the scooters because they're lazy. And those people drive me nuts, and they ruin it for everybody else. So there are some people who use the scooters because, man, they could use a little bit more walking in their life, but they're not going to be denied the family day. I get it. Try to prep ahead of time for that family day, though. Each situation is different, but you can't tell me that there aren't some people here that are actively abusing this situation.
Yeah, and it's very hard. I will say, just to be clear, it's very hard for a proprietor or anybody to really judge somebody and they
literally cannot ask you. They cannot resist you on those questions, which has caused the disaster of the current Disney DAS situation. Disney tries to get you to talk to some kind of healthcare-ish professional, and they'll deny you unless you say some particular set of magic words that I think actually changes according to, I suspect, how well Lightning Lane is selling at the time.
Yeah, it's a very good point, actually. It's a very good point, Jonas. And that's why we're covering this story, right? Because in the themed amusement industry, we have seen a lot of policies that have necessarily restricted access either to those services or to attractions in general. I mean, Jonas, we just covered in the wake of the tragedy related to Stardust Racers, Universal enforcing a policy in which they're going to deny people who actually can't make that step into a ride vehicle from a slew of attractions at Universal Orlando theme parks right there. And it was surprising to me that they would go to that length. And it's like, well, is that consistent with ADA? I'm not sure. But now you have the Justice Department getting involved in a big way. I will say on the scooter thing, it's very interesting because we have seen also too entire facades be completely damaged and broken in such a manner that causes a, not just disruption, but a safety hazard to the guests maybe impacted or those in the surrounding areas because a scooter, operated by somebody lost control and hit something right there. So I think it's, it's definitely a conversation to be had and one that's playing out right now. Final thoughts on that?
No, I don't have any final thoughts, but I am reminded of a time that my wife, when we were younger, she was working near the holidays as a part-time at a handbag store and there was someone who was a new scooter user that was in the store, and she is my wife is working, and she hears from the other side of the store, "Oh no, look out, look out, look out, look out." The person had lost control and did not understand why the scooter was continuing to move forward. She pinned the Asian lady to the wall. I think the handbags cushioned the blow, but you can all look at it and kind of chuckle. But I don't want to say there should be a license if you're going to put a motor in one of those things, but maybe.
Well, these are vehicles that can go up to 10 to maybe even 12 miles per hour. I'm not actually sure on the exact speeds there, but these are being operated in places that, see millions of people a year, maybe even 60,000 people a day. And so they're tight corridor spaces, confined areas, places where maybe people are all exiting at once and so forth, like the end of a parade or the end of a fireworks presentation and so forth. And it is imperative to the safety of everybody around that scooter that driver be capable of operating that system. So I can kind of see some regulation maybe coming on that level. It's going to be very interesting what that actually looks like if we actually get there. But United Parks and Resorts being investigated openly by the Justice Department for regulating devices that guests actually use. We'll keep everybody up to date on all of this stuff, but it is a developing story, this idea that the disabled might not have as much access to these parks as they previously had. Very interesting stuff indeed.
Thanks for watching That Park Plays News. For more information, consider checking out www.thatparkplace.com. And don't forget to subscribe, share, like, and send this out on your favorite social media accounts.